On 16th of August 2024, Election Commission of India announced Legislative Assembly elections for the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which are scheduled to be held from 18th of September 2024 till 1st of October 2024. The elections would be happening in 3 phases and would be electing 90 members of the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly. Now, these Legislative Assembly elections are very special because a lot of firsts are involved in this. First thing is that these will be the first elections in Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory after the year 2014. So in the last 10 years, it will be the first elections. Also, it will be the first election in J&K after the abrogation of Article 370. Also, it will be the first election in J&K, first Legislative Assembly election in J&K after it becoming a union territory, because earlier it was a full state. Also, it will be the first legislative election in Jammu and Kashmir without Ladakh, and the first legislative election in Jammu and Kashmir after the delimitation. Now, Jammu and Kashmir, which is often described as India's crown jewel, is very important for our country, not just because of its natural beauty, but because it is strategic and politically very, very important as well. Now, since the abrogation of Article 370, which happened in the year 2019, the region has been center of a lot of national debates and center of a lot of controversies also. The first since the region lost its special status, the elections hold the key to understand how this historic shift will shape the future of this particular region. To understand the significance of these 2024 elections, we need to revisit the 2019 year. How Article 370 was abrogated, what was there in the Article 370, and to understand that, we have to go even back in time. We have to revisit the history and see how special status was granted to the area or the region of Jammu and Kashmir. Also, we need to understand the historical evolution of the particular state and its accession to India, and the years which made Jammu Kashmir as a region of turmoil and as a point of discussion in all of the national debates. So we'll be understanding basically the significance of the region, why there have been so many controversies in that particular region, why this region is the center of heated national debates since the last many decades and since independence. Hello, my name is Preetpal Singh, and today's topic of discussion would center around the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, the recent elections, and historical evolution of this particular region. Now, the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, it constitutes of 2 divisions. One is Jammu and one is Kashmir, and it is further divided into 20 districts, 10 in each of the divisions. It is having 90 assembly constituencies and 5 parliamentary constituencies. Now, historically, if we go back in time and we see the historical evolution, Jammu and Kashmir was one among the 565 princely states on which British paramountcy lapsed at the stroke of midnight hour on 15th of August 1947, under the partition plan which was provided by the Indian Independence Act. Now, the rulers of the princely states were given options that either they could join India or they could join Pakistan. The ruler of Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, did not exercise the option immediately. He was a bit reluctant and hesitant initially, and he instead offered a proposal of standstill agreement to both India and Pakistan. Pending the final decision on the state's accession, Pakistan entered into a standstill agreement, but eventually Pakistan invaded Kashmir region from north. With an army of the soldiers and tribesmen, they were carrying modern weapons. And in the early hours of 24th of October 1947, thousands of Pashtun tribal Pathans, they swept Kashmir region. Now, the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir appealed India for help. He sent his representative Sheikh Abdullah to Delhi to ask for India's help. So on 26th of October 1947, Maharaja Hari Singh fled from Srinagar, arrived in Jammu, where he signed the instrument of accession from which and through which the area or the region of Jammu and Kashmir, the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, became a part of India formally. Now, according to the terms of document, the Indian jurisdiction would extend on three very important pillars. That is external affairs, communication and defense. That was the agreement with all the other princely states as well. There was no special agreement with that of Jammu and Kashmir. And after the documents were signed, the Indian troops were airlifted into the state and fought alongside the Kashmiris. And eventually we were able to push back. And the area which they were successful in occupying in that particular time is now what we call as Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Now what happened was that on 5th of March 1948, Maharaja Hari Singh, he announced the formation of an interim government in the state with Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah as the Prime Minister. A constituent assembly for the state was also convened to frame a new constitution for the state in October 1951 after elections in which all the seats were won by the JNK Conference, National Conference Party, which was the party of Sheikh Abdullah. Now Sheikh Abdullah reached an agreement with then Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. That agreement is what we call as Delhi Agreement. And under those agreement, it extended the provisions of the Constitution of India regarding citizenship, regarding fundamental rights to the state in addition to the jurisdiction of the Honorable Supreme Court of India. Now agreements were also reached on issues of abolishing monarchy as well as state being allowed a separate flag and an official language of its own. So basically this Delhi Agreement, it spelled the relationship of the state of Jammu and Kashmir with that of whole of India, and it recognized the autonomy of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So earlier, it is not as easy as it seems, or it is not as easy as it looks. It was a very intricate and a complex procedure. However, JNK was given autonomy, but in the same period of time, it was declared as an integral part of India also, granting the central government control over several subjects that were not a part of the instrument of accession. However, Sheikh Abdullah, he wanted to make Article 370 a permanent clause in the constitution and began calling for secession from India, which is why he was arrested in the year 1953. And Bakshi Ghulam Muhammad then became the Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. The Constituent Assembly of the state, they basically passed a resolution in February of 1954 extending some more provisions of the Constitution of India and formally ratifying the accession of the state to India as per the instrument of accession. Now, as per the presidential order, which was passed on 14th May 1954 to implement the Delhi Agreement, drawing the validity from the resolution of the Constituent Assembly. So basically a president order was passed and the new constitution of the state of Jammu and Kashmir was adopted on 17th of November 1956 and it came into force on 26th of January 1957. Following this, the state constituent assembly, they dissolved itself and elections were held for the legislative assembly in the state. And the National Conference logically won 68 out of the 75 seats which were contested. Now coming to the Article 370, that what is the story behind Article 370? Now the provisions of Article 370, they were drafted by Sheikh Abdullah, who was a very popular leader in Kashmir and Jammu at that period of time, extremely popular leader. Now in the Indian Constitution, it was included as a temporary provision that grants a special status to Jammu and Kashmir. So essentially Sheikh Abdullah and others during that period of time, they were demanding a special status for JNK, since they believed that JNK became a part of India in abnormal circumstances. They would naturally have a special status in the country, and they were demanding so. Now in this whole scenario, there was one more thing which was looming around. That was a referendum, right? Now we discussed about that in an earlier video where we discussed about the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. But as I told you, this is not as simple as it looks. In the same period of time, there were talks of referendum in the particular state. And also Pakistan was pushing from the north and from the other side. So this became an international issue also in 1950s and 60s. However, one thing which we note here is that all the provisions of the constitution which were applicable to the other states were not applicable to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. except for defense, foreign affairs, finance, and communications at that period of time. Parliament needs the state government's concurrence for applying other laws if they want to apply other laws in the state. And the state's residents would live under a separate set of laws, including those in relation to citizenship and ownership of property also, which are very crucial parts. Now, this gave J&K a very unique power to have a separate prime minister, to have a separate president, to have a separate flag, and to have a separate constitution and official language itself. And due to so many special provisions accorded to one particular state of the whole nation, of the whole country, this provision or this article always remained debatable and always remained around controversies. Those who were against it, they argued that it hampers integration of whole India, unity of whole India, and equality among the states. However, Section 3 of the J&K Constitution, it very clearly and categorically mentions that Jammu and Kashmir is and will be an integral part of our country, of India basically. So from Article 370 now let's shift to another article, that is Article 35A, which is very important for us to understand. Now this Article 35A, it came into existence because of a presidential order in 1954, and it gives the J&K Assembly the right to decide the definition of permanent residents of the state. So it gives them the right that you define who will be the permanent resident of that particular state, that is J&K, and also prevent people from other states to buy real estate in Jammu and Kashmir. So that is why before 2019 people from other states could not buy or could not purchase land in Jammu and Kashmir based on this Article 35A. Now, according to the Constitution of J&K, a permanent resident is defined as a person who was a state subject on 14th of May 1954, or who will be residing in a state for 10 years and have lawfully acquired immovable property in the state or migrated from the state after 1st of March 1947 and has gone within the present Pakistani border area but has come back within the resettlement permit in that particular state. So under this, the citizens of other states, that is the other citizens of India, who are not residing in the J&K, who are not the residents of J&K, permanent resident of J&K, they won't be able to buy any property, any real estate in the state, and won't also be the permanent resident or won't be able to become the permanent resident of that particular state, that is of Jammu and Kashmir. The presidential order provided that only the permanent residents of the state would have right over scholarships, services, land and settlement in J&K. And it also stated that a girl who is a citizen of J&K, if marries a person who is not a citizen of J&K, not a permanent resident of J&K, that girl will lose her right to ownership of property in the state. However, in 2002, the J&K High Court issued an order stating that in such cases, the girl's right would continue for life. But this was the provision which was there in Article 35A. Now, since we understand these things, now let us go through the chronology once more. 1947, we got independent. J&K acceded to India because of Pakistani forces coming and attacking the Kashmir region. Now, after the accession, Sheikh Abdullah got arrested. Sheikh Abdullah was a very popular leader. Article 370 came into play. Article 35A came into play. Now, in the year of 1980s, 1990s, we saw rise in militant activities in the region of Kashmir. So, there was a discontent over the high-handed policies of the central government and allegations of 1987 legislative elections being rigged. Based on that, several militant activities started happening. There were violent uprisings and armed insurgencies which could be seen in the state. Pakistan claimed at that point of time to give moral and diplomatic support to the separatist movement which was erupting in the Jammu and Kashmir state. The ISI of Pakistan was accused by India and the international community of supporting, supplying arms and training the Mujahideen to fight against India in that particular terrorist regime. Now by 1999, 94 out of the 97 subjects in the Union list and 260 out of the 395 articles of the Constitution of India had become applicable in the state. So in a way, essentially we made most of the Constitution applicable in the state, though it retained some autonomy. And Article 370 was meanwhile merely a symbolic article, but it holded a very important place. After the 2008 Kashmir unrest, secessionist movement in the state got impetus. This 2016-17 Kashmir unrest, it resulted into death of 90 civilians and injury of over 15,000 people in the state. 6 policemen, including a sub-inspector, were killed in an ambush in Anantnag in the June of 2017 by trespassing militants of the Pakistani-based Lashkar-e-Toiba. An attack on the Indian military convoy happened in Pulwama in February of 2019, which we can't forget. It resulted in death of 40 military men, 40 officers. Responsibility was taken by a Pakistani-backed military group, Jaish-e-Mohammed. So all these years, 1980 onwards, became very turbulent for Kashmir region, especially Kashmir region, not for Jammu region, but for Kashmir region. Jammu region more or less remained safe, more or less remained stable. But Kashmir region saw a lot of terrorist activities. Saw a lot of insurgencies, saw a lot of violent clashes in 1990s, 2000s, 2010s. Now let us understand the events leading up to the abrogation of Article 370, because once we understand that, we'll be getting a clear picture of why these recent elections in Jammu and Kashmir are important for us. So let's go back in time a little bit. Let's go back 10 years before. In 2014, there were 11th Legislative Assembly elections which happened in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. No political party got a majority. And after a few months of deliberation, there was an alliance which was formed. And that alliance was amongst arch rivals, that is PDP and BJP. PDP is a very prominent local party in Kashmir region and BJP is a national party. So between these two parties, an alliance was formed. The government ran for a few years. But one change happened in June of 2018. BJP withdrew its support from the PDP-led government. And on November 2018, the then Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, Satyapal Malik, dissolved the State Assembly. In December of 2018, President's rule was imposed. Earlier, Governor's rule was there. Now, President's rule was imposed. While exercising the power under Article 356 of the Constitution of India, and subsequently, it was extended on 3rd of July 2019. Now, during the initial few days of August 2019, there were a lot of activities happening in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Heavy deployment of armed forces in the region, especially in the Kashmir region. Internet connections were cut, telecommunication services were cut, and several key political figures, especially in the Kashmir region, were put under house arrest in the initial few days of August 2019. And on 5th of August 2019, a very historic decision came into place. First, President of India issued an order amending the meaning of the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. That order was issued. Second was that Article 370 of the Constitution of India, which gave special status to the territory, to the region of Jammu and Kashmir, was abrogated. So basically, the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act came into Parliament on that particular day. It was a shock for each and everyone in the country, especially for those who were in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And for the whole country also, because it was not anticipated at all. It came all of a sudden. Of course, the government, it kept on saying in the last 10 years, in the last many years also, that Article 370 is temporary provision. Special status is a temporary provision. We'll be doing away with this. But it will be done in such an abrupt way, no one knew and no one anticipated as well. So this Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act was passed to reconstitute the region, to reconstitute the state of Jammu and Kashmir into Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh was made separate with effect from 31st of October 2019. Few years after this, on February 2022, of course, the case was going in the Honorable Supreme Court of India, Was it standing constitutionally or not? But on February 2022, the Delimitation Commission published its interim report in relation to delimitation in the Union Territory now of Jammu and Kashmir. And on May 5, 2022, additional 6 seats were added to Jammu Division and 1 seat to the Kashmir Division. And after delimitation, the total seats in the assembly, they rose to 114 seats, out of which 24 are designated for the Pakistani administered Kashmir, Pakistani occupied Kashmir, and out of the remaining 90 seats, 43 seats are in Jammu region and 47 seats are in the Kashmir region. So on May 20, 2022, this delimitation report came into force in the Jammu and Kashmir region. Also, I told you that in Honorable Supreme Court of India, case was going on. So on December 11th December 2023, the Supreme Court of India upheld the abrogation of Article 370 and upheld the abrogation of Article 370 as constitutional and ordered that Election Commission of India to hold Legislative Assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir before 30th of September 2024. And this is what is happening currently. Okay, one more thing happened on December 2023. The Parliament, they passed Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Amendment Bill, which provided reservation of 7 seats to the scheduled caste and 9 seats to the scheduled tribes in the Legislative Assembly. The Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir region, in the last 4 decades, it recorded the highest voter turnout in the Lok Sabha elections, which was 58.58%. And 51% was the voter turnout in the Valley region, Kashmir Valley region, in the Lok Sabha elections of the 2024, which happened few months back. On May 2024, when the election got over, it has been now several years since the region of Jammu and Kashmir is without any representative government, no government in the Union Territory. Because Jammu and Kashmir was made a Union Territory but with a Legislative Assembly, right? Ladakh was made a Union Territory without a Legislative Assembly. So it has been since 2019, it has been 5 years since J&K was not having Legislative Assembly, was not having elections. So after these general elections, Lok Sabha elections, our Union Home Minister remarked that we will be starting the process of restoration of statehood and elections would soon be happening in the Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory. On July 31st, 2024, the Election Commission of India, they asked the Jammu and Kashmir administration to transfer out officers which were posted in their home districts. Now this is a routine exercise which Election Commission does before the elections, before they hold the elections in that particular region. And on August 9th, 2024, a team of Election Commission of India, they reviewed the preparedness of J&K, of Jammu and Kashmir, to hold assembly polls and took feedback from the political parties as well. And eventually on 16th and 17th of August 2024, the Election Commission announced that elections would be taking place, Legislative Assembly elections would be taking place in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir from 18th of September to 1st of October. And it will be in 3 phases. Now this announcement was a very joyous moment for the people in Jammu and Kashmir region. Because now, after so many years, they'll be getting an opportunity to select and elect their representatives who will then be working for their betterments. So democracy has finally now returned in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And the Union Territory is looking forward to these elections. Now, and also one more thing they are looking forward to, that is restoration of statehood. Now this whole chronology of events was no less than a grand thriller. And so many ups and downs, so many twists and turns were there. But eventually we understood one thing, that all these events led to what J&K as a Union Territory is today. And now once the elections results would be announced, it is for all of us to see that how this restoration of democracy pans out for the Union Territory, pans out for the particular region, and what will be the changes which we could be seeing. Now with this in mind, One last thing which we have to know is that what are the key issues which will be very important for the political parties and for the overall elections, legislative assembly elections, which are going to be held in the Jammu and Kashmir region. See, the important issues can be categorized into 4 important fronts. First is the restoration of statehood, a very important demand by most of the people in the Jammu and Kashmir region, because statehood is having its own benefit. Delhi, as a national capital territory region, also demands statehood, and J&K as a region is also demanding statehood. And many people say that it has been first time since independence when we have reversed the position of a state, that from state we have converted a state into a union territory. It is the first time it has happened, and that was done because of security reasons and other reasons as well. But once elections would be over, eventually statehood should also return to the state, to the region of Jammu and Kashmir. That is one issue which will be prominent in these elections. Second issue is definitely development, economic development, social development, political development of the region. Third issue will be ensuring security and peace in the region. See, because this region, Kashmir region especially, is very volatile. Now, in the last many months, we have seen a lot of terrorist activities in the Jammu division as well. So, terrorism is a very important issue. So, security and peace in the region will be a very integral point of these elections. That after these elections, how the government, the Union Territory government, would be able to ensure stability, would be able to ensure peace and security in that particular region. And the fourth pillar or the fourth front is the unemployment in youth. Because unemployment in Kashmiri youth, unemployment in Jammu region, it is very, very high. It is a very big problem which is basically destroying the lives of the youth in that particular region. And it fuels discontent and frustration among the youth. And many youth voters, they are looking forward for a leadership that can address this particular crisis. Now, as Jammu and Kashmir gears itself and heads towards a pivotal election in 2024, the region now stands at a very critical and crucial juncture. The elections are not just a political contest, it is basically a referendum on the future of this region. With the abrogation of Article 370 still fresh in the mind of the people, voters will have a chance to tell the central government, to tell the country also what do they feel, whom they will be electing, whom they not be electing. But the question remains that after the elections, would stability, development and the issues which we discussed about, these issues, will they be solved in the region, or will it lead to further political polarization? Only time will tell. Now, you also let us know in the comment section that what do you all think about the issues currently going on in the region of Jammu and Kashmir, and how these elections would be for the future of this Jammu and Kashmir region, and what can be done even further to improve the current situation. I hope you gained a new perspective from this session. All the very best and have a beautiful day. Thank you.